ITBusiness.ca recently released the results of our second annual State of the Canadian SMB study, sponsored by Dell. And our editor-in-chief, Shane Schick, wrote up this report on it, which is really great. And there's a lot of good insights here on what sort of technology challenges that small businesses in Canada are dealing with, and also the opportunities that they're looking to see. Shane, what was one of the more interesting challenges you saw?
Well, one of the things that really surprised us last year, I think, was the result on social media. Naturally, just given all the hype around Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, we asked, how much are you using it? And it was really, I can't remember the exact percentage, but it was, I think, more than half that were just not bothering at all. So this year we delved in a little bit more deeply as to the reasons why. And it was really clear that a lot of them felt really time crunched in order to start doing all that stuff, and that they weren't necessarily seeing what the value would be for them. And I think that makes sense in a lot of ways. Obviously there's a lot of tools that are coming onto the market to try to monitor what's being said about you. But I think that you need to be an organization of a certain size to start to really invest in that. Where I think social media might be useful for them, and what we see in some companies, is in doing sort of customer service in a way, answering questions. But you really have to build up a significant following to start doing that. I think it's something that they will latch on to as the market for that grows. But their rationale in some ways made sense, just given the limited resources that a lot of SMBs have.
Yeah, I understand where they're coming from. Those that feel maybe that it's not the best use of their time and energy, because we spend so much time on social media here, but it makes sense for a publication that lives on the web to just push out the links and say, yes, go here, and then, that's sort of our end goal for people. But what if you're trying to sell shoes? That doesn't connect quite as directly, right?
Yeah, and I think it's kind of demonstrates the fact that at a lot of SMBs or even SMEs, the president is also the marketing person who might normally take on that social media role. So how much can they literally do? We're challenged, just keeping up with all the various platforms. So it makes sense, but an interesting benchmark that will hopefully see change over time.
Yeah, and another interesting challenge I saw, that was maybe a little bit more general, was that about half of companies said they felt like their biggest IT challenge was just keeping up with the pace of technology and modernizing their systems, sort of being stuck on legacy systems. But then I was looking at a couple of the other answers, and I realized that they're relying on one internal IT decision maker, one or two maybe, to help them through that. And they're also leaving their staff to train themselves in a lot of instances, or trying to do some internal training. So what do you think? Do you think that maybe smaller companies where IT isn't a great competency should be looking to external sources, and they wouldn't feel so challenged?
It's going to be a tough one because according to the survey, 56% of our respondents said their IT budget was going to be flat this year. That's actually a bit of an increase from how many said it was going to be flat last year. And the percentage of those who were expecting an increase in their budget was also reduced by a couple of percentage points, from 29 to 27%. So people don't have a lot of money that they see going into 2012 to do that. On the other hand, I think what people are doing with their resources is interesting. We asked what were the areas the technologies that were going to most help their businesses in 2012. And the top two answers were business intelligence and virtualization.
Right.
A couple of years ago, we would have pegged those as more of big company kinds of products and services. So even though they say they're struggling to keep up with the pace of technology, they're actually working on some of the most leading edge enterprise technology that could actually really transform their business. So they're doing better than they think.
Right. And just to touch on one more thing quickly, I think it was interesting. We hear so much about smartphones, tablets, these new computing form factors. Yet small businesses, a lot of them are saying, look, we're not getting rid of any of the old technology. We're going to keep using desktops. It's the tried and true thing. It works. We like working on that platform, so we're sticking with it.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting. I think we saw a fairly high percentage that said they were going to refresh their desktops, in fact, this year. So it's a great reality check to all this hype we see on the new gadgetry. The other important thing to recognize, though, we asked about the whole bring your own device policy area, this consumerization of IT. And there was an even split. I think it was 33 and 33%. said that they either let employees use whatever devices they want, or they didn't have a policy, which means employees are probably using whatever devices they want. So even if the SMBs are saying that they're not necessarily moving off the desktop, their employees probably are in some form or another. And most importantly, the companies are allowing their employees to do that. So I think we'll start to see that shift in the kinds of hardware devices they're using happen, but not necessarily from a company perspective. It'll be driven by employees, and that's great.
All right, well, thanks for telling me about this, Shane.
No problem.
And I want to thank everybody that maybe participated in our survey. If you provided us answers, that was great. And if you're watching for coverage, look to ITBusiness.ca. We'll have a number of stories coming out over the next few weeks. I'm Brian Jackson for ITBusiness.ca.